As soon as this clip was captured on video, fans couldn't stop talking about it. Once seemingly unshakable, a friendship now seems to be falling apart. This is the type of tea that nobody expected to pour so rapidly. Sitting opposite Spice, Yandy is venting his anger that has built up over the years and exposing Rita's betrayal, which she did not anticipate. Spice sat wide-eyed, unable to believe what she was hearing, not shade or whispers, but a storm of emotions. How could someone who was trusted with someone else's personal pain turn around and let it become a talking point? How could a mutually supportive relationship turn into one that is characterized by silence and charges? These kinds of questions are flooding fan pages, blogs, and timelines tonight. Yandy not only voiced her opinions but also tore the curtain off a bond that her supporters thought would never be broken. And when Spice leaned back, obviously taken aback, the audience froze. This was a treachery that was made public. It was more than just reality television. Drama. And that's just the beginning of the ramifications. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, and Yandy leaned forward in the motionless room, fire in her eyes. Spice shifted in her chair, trying to process the information, but the seriousness of the situation prevented her from doing so. The intensity of Yandy's emotions, her voice cracked slightly. Not out of weakness, but because she had repressed it for so long. She talked of secrets she believed to be held between friends, private tears, and late-night conversations. But, nevertheless, those same secrets had started to circulate through podcasts and blogs, losing their meaning and turning into rumors that the planet was eating. Since it was about who said it as much as what was said, Yandy felt that the betrayal went beyond than any insult could. Spice's normally sharp tongue was frozen as she listened, her lips slightly open. She knew what it was like to tell a friend about your shortcomings, as she had gone through her own difficulties in the spotlight. Consequently, it was almost intolerable to feel the agony in every syllable and to hear Yandy describe the anguish of Rita's remarks. Spice briefly averted her gaze, as if hoping the cameras would stop and that this wasn't occurring right now. Recording, but nobody can escape reality. And this fact could no longer be hidden. Yandy became increasingly irritated. She recalled some of the times she had confided in Rita when she was unsure of how to proceed, when her own marriage felt shaky, and when she was involved in battles that the general public would never see. The sisterhood bond, she thought, was strong enough to keep them together. She therefore believed Rita when she said those things. Instead of comfort, though, she was now coping with the hurt of betrayal and the realization that those private conversations had been made public for everyone to judge. "I never sat on a podcast and dragged her," Yandy muttered as she shook her head. "And if I did mention her, I did so in a kind way. She didn't, however, treat me any differently." Spice shifted uneasily at the bitterness of her tone. In addition to the rage, there was disappointment as well. Disappointment that is more painful than rage. Spice couldn't help but reflect on the number of friendships that had already ended because of pride, rumors, and cameras. The industry had a way of shattering individuals and changing them as she sat there caught in the crossfire. Friends become enemies and secrets into weapons. But witnessing it occur so intimately between women she considered sisters was a new kind of sorrow. As night fell, gossip started to spread. Backstage whispers turned into humming dialogue. Some claimed to have seen Rasheeda quickly depart Spice's performance to escape a conflict. Others claimed that Kirk urged her to leave before things became unmanageable. Instantly, online users were compiling videos that replayed Yandy's remarks and analyzing every single facial expression Spice made during the meeting. In the comments, people took sides, with some applauding Rita for voicing her opinions, and others denouncing her for breaking the code of friendship. The gap was obvious, and Yandy appeared to feel more isolated as the clamor increased in volume. In the middle of it all, Spice tried to speak up with firmness. She gave a hesitant response. Maybe it was only a miscommunication, but her hesitancy seemed visible in her eyes. But Yandy wasn't happy about it. She leaned back with her arms folded and spoke in a stern but painful voice. "There's no possibility of miscommunication when you're on podcasts, sitting in interviews, or dropping hints about someone's husband. That's not a mistake, Spice. That's a choice." Words hung there, unquestionable and heavy. Rumors of what had transpired outside that room were already audible to Rita. According to those around her, she was furious and insisted that Yandy was making things up. After enduring her own struggles, she informed Kirk that she would not permit anyone to paint her as a villain. However, there was a flicker of regret in the back of her mind. a moment of doubt when she recognized that maybe, just maybe, she had overreached herself. However, she was too arrogant to don't accept it yet. Meanwhile, fans were dissecting every facet of the story. Stories of friendships falling apart were posted on blogs. Reports on social media likened previous footage of Rasheeda and Yandy laughing together to the icy tension that is currently seeping onto screens. "It hurts watching this," a fan commented on YouTube, "because they were supposed to be sisters, and now it's like strangers throwing knives." Another said, "Rasheeda knew better than to divulge Yandy's business, yet he was utterly wrong." The close-knit bond abruptly that had survived the seasons was the focus of popular discourse. Yandy had revealed everything. She admitted that she had kept quiet too long, hoping that things would get better and Rasheeda would realize how bad she was being, but she said that remaining silent had just made things worse. Yandy laughed without a sense of humor. Said, "She thought I was going to sit back and take it. But no longer." Her words echoed like a last warning, promising Rita more pyrotechnics if she avoided looking directly at her. "I've had enough of defending those who don't defend me." The cast's dynamic shifted in the days after the conversation with Seasony. There seemed to be a buzz of excitement in every room, and every meeting was tense. People wanted to see if Yandy and Rita would finally face up or if Rita would keep dodging until the pressure exploded on its own. Kirk tried to downplay it, calling it just another miscommunication, but even he knew that this was more than a few careless words. It was the breakdown of pride, betrayal, and trust all at once. Conflicts between pride and betrayal are rarely, easily resolved. The mention of Jasmine simply made things more complicated. When Yandy disclosed that Rasheeda was closer to Jasmine than everyone had assumed, Spice nearly coughed. Her eyes widened, her jaw tensed, and she momentarily lost the ability to speak. The already shocking idea of Rita traveling and living with someone who has a lot of historical ties was given much more weight after hearing it from Yandy. Suffering Yandy was unmoved by Spice's initial response. "No way. I don't believe that." She insisted that it was real and advised Spice to listen carefully and draw the connections. Just the thought of that made the entire room tremble. Outside in the real world, fans went bananas. The reappearance of old images and screenshots fueled speculation. Suddenly, every vacation post and every group shot with a casual smile were scrutinized. People were curious as to whether Rita had concealed this connection or if she had pretended to be on both sides and switched sides. As the betrayal grew, so did the controversy around her name. It was like standing on unstable ground that could collapse at any moment, encircled by the aftermath of Rasheeda and Yandy. She acted out in her mind what Yandy had stated, including the accusation against Jasmine, the anger as well as the sense of betrayal. Spice couldn't decide if the tension was more painful or shocking. But one thing was for sure, it wasn't going away. In fact, it was growing into something bigger, something that would eventually shake their whole town. In the morning, the blogs were already buzzing more than before. Videos from the previous night went viral, hashtags were becoming more popular in the charts, and fan pages were piecing together events. The internet, which thrived on this kind of drama, now closely examined every move made by Rasheeda and Yandy. Now, it was more about truth, loyalty, and the complex network of connections that brought them all together rather than being a matter of friendship. Yandy was looking through the comments on her phone, her face taut with frustration. Her courage in finally speaking up was commended by some of the other writers. Others accused her of being disorderly herself, and of seeking to undermine Rita for influence. But to Yandy, none of that mattered. That was what mattered, and the public needed to know that she felt duped. She told a close friend, "I know what I shared with her. I know the promises we made, and I know she broke them. They can say whatever they want." Rita said, but she was doing everything she could to maintain her calm. She smiled on social media, made funny comments, and acted as though nothing was wrong. But behind closed doors, she was enraged. Yandy had effectively called her out in front of everyone, and she couldn't deny it. Kirk tried to comfort her and tell her to go on, but the tension reached a boiling point when the cast gathered for another function a few days later. With music, laughter, and Rita pacing the room and whispering, "She's trying to paint me as fake. This is what I get after everything I've done to help her. No, I will not give her the final say." Spice arrived first, attracting attention with her typical outfit, but the weight in the air remained, despite her cheerful exuberance. She noticed Yandy sitting with a small group of people, but underlying it all was the silent knowing that Rasheeda and Yandy were both present. People immediately sensed the shift in energy as Rita entered the room with Kirk at her side, her head held high and her face impassive, her stance rigid, her eyes darting across the room as if she were preparing for battle. Conversations slowed and eyes flashed as everyone waited for the inevitable moment when the two women would meet. It was Yandy who made contact, and Spice found herself holding her breath, wondering if this would be the night when everything finally exploded. She wanted for calm, but she knew in her heart that this was reality TV and that it was never the main event. Rita didn't flinch when he saw her approaching. Instead, she straightened her back and prepared to fight back. When Yandy reached her, the jaw room seemed to quiet down, and everyone was looking as she strode across the room, her heels clicking like warning signs on the floor. "So, what are we doing right now?" Yandy said in a calm but assertive tone. "After everything I told you, are you really going to sit on platforms and talk about my husband and me?" Rita squinted her eyes. "So, what are we doing right now?" There were audible gasps across the room, and Spice stood nearby, pursed her lips, unsure whether to intervene or let things play out. Her voice was low and tremulous. "I'm out here, talking lies. If what I said touched a chord, then you should think about why. You know what you did, you know what I told you when I was weak, and you used it as a talking point. A friend doesn't behave like that," Rita responded without holding back. "And what about the times when you left me?" Yandy stepped closer with emotion. The back and forth made the room quiet. Even Kirk, who is usually quick to defend himself. "What? If you were too busy to answer the phone while I was having trouble, don't act like this is biased. Maybe you should stop acting like you're perfect." The room exploded as the fight continued, and someone mentioned the name Jasmine again. "Why? Don't you share your little travels?" Rita stayed silent due to the intense atmosphere. Spice moved uneasily, her eyes darting between the two women, knowing that the friendship was already too ruined to be restored, regardless of what was said tonight. Rasheeda froze, the charge slicing her harder. "You think that people don't know? Do you think I'm missing the links in the pictures? You're closer to her now than you've ever been to me." Yandy's voice raised as she snapped, more profoundly than she had expected. Spice's jaw dropped as her palm went to her lips, trying to process what she had just heard. Whispers swept through the crowd like wildfire, and everyone leaned in to hear every word. Rita's face tensed, but her eyes still had a hint of embarrassment. Or maybe it was simply irritation at being so widely known. "Please don't make my friendships into something they're not," Rita said with a loud snarl. But the damage had already been done. "You don't have all the answers, and you have no right to dictate who I can or cannot be with." Been completed. The suspicion had been planted in everyone's mind, not only Yandy's. Spice looked at Rita, then at Yandy, caught between disbelief and concern. She pleaded with them to go before things went out of control because she wanted to put an end to it all. However, she was aware that there was certain to be confrontation. Outside the theater, fans who had heard about the scene began to speculate. After being leaked, blurry video from the room's perimeter went popular on the internet. "Did anyone see Yandy pull Rita over Jasmine?" An admirer posted on Twitter. "This is getting messy, shaky." Spick's expression said it all. Another person shot back. Within a few hours, the dispute went worldwide, with ideas, memes, and responses flooding social media. Behind closed doors, Spice tried separately to get in touch with the two women. She initially spoke with Yandy, advising her to pause and think about whether disclosing everything in public was worthwhile. Yandy's voice softened in spite of her resolve. "I tried to keep it quiet, Spice. I really did, but she kept talking and nudging. You must defend yourselves." Eventually, Spice moaned, knowing she couldn't argue with it. Later, when she spoke with Rita, the atmosphere was very different. Rita was defensive, her words piercing, her tone steady. Rita persisted. "She desires to make me the villain. In no way did I betray her. I wouldn't let her paint me as weak though. All right, if she wants war, let's go." With a broken heart, Spice hung up the phone after realizing that the rivalry was just getting worse. The divisions within the group could no longer be ignored. Friends were forced to pick sides because the conflict between Rita and Yandy seemed to come up in every conversation. Some were unable to put out the fires, while others refrained from talking about it at all for fear of getting caught up in the whirlpool. The next encounter would be much more intense than the previous one, and the atmosphere was surprising and electrifying. There was so much stress in the room that even the quiet hum of the air conditioner sounded too loud. Yandy's voice broke when she tried to defend herself, but her words didn't sound the way she had wanted. Instead, they floated through the air, and everyone fell silent, as if they were waiting for the next explosion. Kirk leaned forward and gazed at her intently, his elbows resting on his knees, his eyes seeming to pierce her. Rita moved awkwardly and chewed her lip, clearly unsure of whether to step in and stop it or wait for it to happen. Each glance, shaky breath, and feeling that swept across their faces was recorded by the cameras while they kept rolling. Kirk's eyes narrowed and his jaw tightened as Rita's hand instinctively went to his arm with heavier breaths. As if sensing that he was about to lose it, Yandy made an effort to equalize the playing field, but his remarks just made things more tense. With thankfulness and annoyance that he had jumped in, he turned to face Manny's before Kirk sagged back in his chair and made a fake laugh. The team behind the cameras looked at each other and even whispered to each other, sensing that they were recording something that could affect the entire plot of the season. The mood had become more severe, really unbearable. It was not a laugh, but a laugh flavored with disbelief, bitterness, and a trace of mockery. Now you wish to play the role of mediator. When did you believe she was wrong? Mendez's shoulder muscles clenched as he sat up taller, his words penetrating. Rita tried to defuse the situation, but her voice broke. Her proposal that maybe we should all just take a step back was ignored. Yandy snapped out at Kirk, her words slipping out of her mouth before they could be heard. You're not aware of what it's like to be depicted as the villain all the time and held responsible for everything. I do. Do you think this mess was my intention? You think I was going to mention your son's name? Her voice broke at the end, her vulnerability piercing the confusion for a moment. But Kirk was unconvinced. As he leaned, his voice was low but intimidating, forward again. You ruined his reputation, not merely pulled it. The taint you left behind will never go.